everyone. Thanks for tuning in to The Real for Real. I'm Kevin. This is Isaiah. And so today we're going to be talking about a movie called Judas and the Black Messiah. This movie was written and directed by Shaka King. It was produced by Shaka King and Ryan Coogler. And the cinematography was done by Sean Bobbitt. So, hey, Isaiah, man, I got to tell you, I think this is my favorite movie this year so far.
Oh, dang. It's like that. Out the gun, it's your favorite one already?
That's my favorite one, man. I got to tell you, like, I think this movie is almost flawless, in my opinion.
I think it's pretty darn good. I don't know if I don't know yet if I can say best out of the year. That's just me. It's a little early to try and call that, especially at least for me being only March. Hey, I think it's a little early, but
yeah.
But yeah, no, really good film. Kudos to Shaka King and Ryan Coogler for helping out with the producing this movie and getting it into theaters. Shout out to Warner Brothers as well for distributing it. But man, yeah, let's get into this one. I definitely think it'll be one of those that's in the running for some awards this year for sure. For sure.
War is politics with bloodshed. War without politics is bloodshed. Man, bars.
Yeah. No, that was a fabulous line.
Fred Hampton.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, like, for me, this is finally a Panther movie with that wasn't low budget.
Yeah.
It was a high quality movie, and I love it. And I think that the advertising for this movie was different. I could see that being something that threw people off because it looked like it was going to be a heavy Black Panther movie and focus on the character study of Fred Hampton.
No, yeah, but, I mean, like even in the way the title slide, kind of runs with Judas being like so big and Judas and Black Messiah being so large in there, and then in the trailers, like, so I'm not gonna lie, when I saw it at first, it almost felt like it was gonna be more of a biopic for Fred. Like that's the vibe I got, and I think that's something that you gotta watch out for. As you go into this film, because it definitely was very heavy on Daniel Kaluuya, at least in the trailers, it felt that way. So I think that a lot of times when we were watching and you're thinking about what's going to happen in the movie, as you watch that trailer, you're assuming, oh, we about to get a Fred Hampton biopic, forgetting that, like, yo, I don't even know if we know enough about Fred as like a society to do that.
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that because, there's, I think a lot of people, probably just learned about the Black Panthers from this movie. And the thing is, it didn't really get too deep into the Black Panthers. There was more of a study of the COINTEL and the infiltration with WilliamO'Neal. And it focused heavy on J. Edgar Hoover and how pivotal he was with this infiltration. And I like how the movie opened up, but I don't want to get too deep into the Panthers. I do want to say kind of who co-founded it and what happened, and then we can move on and talk about the movie. But for the people who don't know, the Black Panthers were co-founded by Bobby Seale and Huey P. Newton in Oakland, California in 1966. They went to Merritt College together, and they got with various organizations to, try to come up with how they can uplift the Black community. The thing is, they kind of had different ideologies from the people that they were trying to link up with and work with at Merritt College. And so Bobby and Huey, they decided to go ahead and branch off and do their own thing. And from there, that's where they came up with the 10-point program, which is basically a Declaration of Independence or Bill of Rights for Black people that they want the government to abide by. And so that's kind of like the background of the 10-point program. But they also started the Panthers because at the end of the day, they wanted to, uplift the Black people, and they realized a lot of injustice that was going on in the Black community as far as police brutality. And so they're like, look, Bobby and Huey, they were very well read as far as their laws, and they knew that they had the right to bear arms in California. So they put this together, and this was something that threatened the FBI and made them fearful. And so, that's just kind of the backstory. And then when we get to Fred Hampton, which it wasn't explained in the movie, but originally he worked for the NAACP. And then after that, he saw like a lot of the Panthers working in Chicago, Illinois. And he was like, you know what? I like what they're doing over here. I'm going to go ahead and join the Panthers. And he was doing so much as far as, just advancing the Illinois chapter that he became Chairman Fred.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the backstory of that.
Yeah, in the start of the movie does give a little. It doesn't give as in depth as you explained.
Right.
So for those of you at home, I would definitely say if you'd like to crack open a couple of books about the Panthers, this, that, and the other. I believe that definitely, or at least for me as a kid, luckily for me, my parents kind of taught me a little about who they were from the positive side of it. But I think for most of us, we may not have always known much more about it. At least not in school. We don't talk about it a lot. So I would say
Never.
definitely look into. Well, I mean, heck, I think people know the term. People knew what it was, the term, so they got to talk about it. They had to have heard about it somewhere. I think schools mentioned them. I don't think it's mentioned whether they're bad, good, this, that, and the other. I think it may have just been mentioned. You know what I'm saying, in conversation, or like as a blurb in a textbook. So, but I would definitely say this movie is a nice jumping off point for anybody who wants to go get more information. But yeah, the beginning of the movie does touch on a little bit of the starts of the organization itself. But it, as Kevin said, like, it's not really meant to be focused on the Black Panthers. So we don't spend much time there. The whole thing is really about the infiltration of the Chicago party simply by William O'Neal. And so just remember when you're watching it, the movie focuses on William. It is the focus is about William and the FBI's infiltration, even though Kahlua gives awesome performance. Like I'm gonna go ahead and take that step to dive into the film. Kahlua and Lakeith Stanfield give really, really great performances throughout this movie.
Phenomenal.
Like really, really great performances. There are times when I think it's just a testament to how hard Kahlua works, because there are times in there when I think I'm listening to, like, if I can close my eyes, I feel like I'm listening to Fred speak, and it's,
bro, the accent was on point.
Yeah,
Fred. It was like, what?
Like, especially knowing that the brother, like, is from like the UK. So I'm like, what?
Right.
Like, yeah, it's really crazy. But yeah, true testament to the work and dedication he put into his craft, as well as just the research he was doing on Fred himself. Because there are moments when he's speaking throughout that film that I wouldn't think that I was listening to Daniel Kaluuya. So it was pretty awesome.
Let's talk about the movie for a second. I don't know if you remember at the very beginning of the movie, we get into J. Edgar Hoover where he's talking to the FBI, right?
Right.
And J. Edgar Hoover is played by Martin Sheen, and he does a phenomenal job. I'm like, wow, Martin Sheen, they got him really looking like him. But he says something interesting at the very beginning of the movie. He says, the Panthers are a threat to our society, right? They are a bigger threat than the Chinese and a bigger threat than the Russians. And so I thought that was interesting that he was using that. And so it makes me think about the theme of the movie, right? Could it be possibly capitalism versus communism or Marxism? Maybe it is, because why are they the biggest threats? Is it because they have the right to bear arms, or is it because, they're realizing that the Panthers' philosophy is, hey, my money isn't just my money is your money too. Right, or is it possibly, when we think about the free breakfast program, hey, this food isn't just for me, this food is for everybody. We're trying to feed the community. They're trying to eradicate the food injustice, right? Yeah. So, when you look at this, J. Edgar Hoover, they're looking at it like, look, y'all are messing up this capitalistic society that we have when you're talking about what's mine is yours. So is that what we kind of view as Marxism?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you bring that point up from the beginning of the movie, because I do think that there are heavy tones. For those of you who don't know the backstory, at least when you watch the movie, you can tell that there are heavy tones of what Fred preaches to his local chapter and the things that they are doing through that chapter that scream to communism, socialism in a sense, and as a whole, like they kind of operate in that notion. So it is interesting to me. I mean, I wish I could be a fly on the wall in J. Edgar Hoover's office, to be able to know why that seemed to make them public enemy number one. I mean, true, communism was a big thing that we were afraid of, at that point. Communism, socialism would have looked terrible, super, super scary at that point. So maybe that is what they're going toward. But I also think that it's it's an interesting thing that's brought up there thematically by showing those things like the free breakfast program and the different communist and socialist practices that they use to show that, in a sense, it's weird to see them in a movie and to see them not shown in a completely negative light, if that makes sense. Like when you're watching the movie, you feel that there's a very heartfelt, at least by Fred, on Fred's part and on the chapter's part in there, there's a sense of just trying to make sure that they're taking care of one another. But at the same time, as being, especially being Americans here, where we value our capitalist system, and our democracy here, it's interesting to watch, and for me to be kind of sympathizing. You know what I'm saying? You sympathize. You watch, and you're like, yeah, I can sympathize with why these programs will be set up. But at the same time, that does kind of look like, the big bad communism, the big bad socialism. Is that the right, and so you got that little thing. So yeah, I'm not sure what causes, what made them public enemy number one. I don't know if, if that's the underlying reason behind it. I don't know if, I don't know enough about, I guess you could say, I don't know enough about Hoover's politics to know, or his own thinking to know about that. But hey, maybe I got.
Oh, we have to talk offline on that one, man.
Yeah, I'm about to say maybe I had to do some.
Hoover was something.
Into that one.
Hoover was something, definitely.
I know about the time. I know about the time period and the politics and feelings of the time period. But to say, why that makes them number one, I mean, the political aspect of it is a legitimate concern. I think many Americans, anybody could sit down and think about that and see the political ramifications and be like, oh, that was something that is a big, hell, even today, it's still a big fear,
Yeah.
So.
Man, I like when Roy, in the beginning of the movie, so this is when we're tapping into the mindset of how does William O'Neal feel, right? So Roy, in the beginning of the movie, he asked him, were you upset when Dr. King was murdered or when Malcolm X was murdered? And, these are two obviously pivotal people in the Black community. And to see William O'Neal's reaction to it, he knew that he was going to be the essential person to use for the infiltration, because William O'Neal's character he's kind of unfazed, right?
Yeah.
He didn't know how to feel, really.
I think, he was just, so where we start with O'Neal in the beginning of the film, I think O'Neal is simply just a dude out to take care of himself. Like,
that's it. Capitalism.
He doesn't seem overly, at least the way the film portrays him. I mean, he doesn't seem overly concerned about anything going on in the world around him.
He wants his record expunged. He's
just taking care of himself.
And he wants to fatten his pockets. Yes.
He's I think when they ask him that question, when Roy asked him the question, in his mind, he's like, what's that got to do with what I'm going through right now? And
right.
In his mind, I think it felt like he was living very small scale at that time. I'm just trying to make sure that I can do well for me. And so it is interesting to see that question doesn't faze him at all. It's just, like, I'm not hyper political. Yeah. I only know to deal with what's in my little circle right now. I think that, I mean, that's an interesting point. It just kind of goes to the solid storytelling, though, like of the movie in general, right? Like the movie does a solid job of telling that story of William O'Neal. Like even from like the first, so it's awesome. The movie opens with a reenactment of a documentary.
Yeah,
William
right.
shot. It's a reenactment that starts prior to the documentary was actually filmed. In other words, you see Lakeith coming in as William, and he's sweating something serious. He's sitting there in a chair, nervous before this interview happens. Then it cuts to a more, upkept version of O'Neal sitting there.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem as nervous. Like it's interesting, like just to tell that tale that like those two little images in the beginning help you to realize that there's a little more conflict to this individual than people may give credit for.
Right.
This man is responsible for the downfall of Fred Hampton, but at the same time, it was really awesome to see that in the beginning, and then also at the end of the movie, you see that it's kind of reinforced when they finally show the actual snippet.
Yeah, the actual snippet.
They show the snippet of the documentary that's made.
It's chilling. It's chilling.
Yeah, it's really chilling. And it creates this, it's great storytelling to kind of connect the narrative, because you get that beginning and that nervousness and you're like, well, what's going on? Why is this nervous? And you only get this snippet. You don't, if you didn't know about it,
you didn't know about the documentary, you just, right.
Like
Yeah.
you just assume, why did they start this way? And then it goes into the film and you start to see how things go. And as we watch the kind of unraveling in the changes that happen in Mr. O'Neal, I guess that's the coolest thing. You watch the changes in how he views things. He doesn't stay as selfish as we believed him to be, like by the start of the film.
Right.
He starts to see the bigger picture of what's happening around him and how the Panther Party is trying to make change there, trying to affect
right.
there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he still can't shake that I got to take care of me piece.
Yep, that's it. Yep, the capitalist side of it. Yep, absolutely.
We see that in his worry as time goes. So yeah, the storytelling is really, really great, and not just from O'Neal's perspective. The bits we get about Hampton, even from Roy too. Like
even Roy. I know you don't care for that actor very much, man.
No. I'm not gonna say I don't care for him.
He did
as much as I just like. I think he gets
good job.
Really good job. Flemings, I think he gets kind of pigeonholed into the same kind of role.
He gets typecast a little bit. He does.
And for me, I also am a big person, in my mind, I need more facial expression from, and I don't get it. Like, that's just a thing for me.
Yeah.
There's a lot to read from facial expression. And so that's my only quarrel. He's not a bad actor at all. Like, heck, I love Breaking Bad. He's great.
He was great in Black Mass, by the way. I like him in that. Let me switch gears on something different though. So you know how they talk about the crowns in the movie, right? When they start trying to unite with people, the forces. The interesting fact is the crowns, they fictionalized the name. That's actually not the crowns, it's the Black Stone Rangers. Right. And it was interesting because I was talking to my grandparents, man, and they're older and they lived in Illinois at the time when this was going on.
Yeah.
And man, it was just so cool just hearing them tell me about the Black Stone Rangers and what they were doing, and them like knowing about Fred and them being there when all this stuff was happening. Right. Man, I thought that was cool, man. And then you have Fred linking up with the Young Patriots, which is the white Southern group that you see in the movie.
Yeah.
And just the way he just enters, the way he enters that meeting that they had and the confidence that he had with, just, hey, he wants to unite with them. I thought that was great.
Yeah, and I think they do a great job throughout the movie of, despite that it's not a Fred Hampton movie, and shout out to y'all for putting this together and putting the information that you did know about Fred out.
Shaka King, shout out to Shaka King.
Hopefully, just go ahead and throw this in the air, Hollywood, but maybe we can do some more digging and maybe get a little more about, Fred himself.
That's what I love about this, Isaiah, is this movie was so well done. The budget was good. This movie was supported. People are getting awards for this movie. People are being recognized. This movie is going to open the doors for us potentially getting a Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale movie, or getting maybe a Sada movie or something. Like, we're going to get more of these kind of movies. We don't have to worry about the low budget Panther movies that were made in the past anymore. I think this is going to open the door for a lot of things.
And also, like, in regards to like other Panther movies out there, this is probably the first one where it's been put center stage and really, been told well. And I'm not to knock those of you who have shot, films about the Panthers. Hey, you did, I guess, what you could at the time with what
you could. You did what you could.
And I'm not going to say that I've sat here and seen all of them. I haven't.
No.
But I will say that, I hope to be able to get more in-depth looks at the people behind it. That's what I'm more so getting at. I think oftentimes in a lot of films, the Panthers are mentioned, but it's one dimensional.
It's very minor. It's very minor.
Or it's minor. Yeah, it's one dimensional. It's minor.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm hoping for. So when I'm throwing that in the air, hey, I wouldn't mind seeing a whole Fred Hampton film if we can get the information about it. I wouldn't mind seeing about, Bobby Seale.
That you said
In
Fred
general,
Hampton. Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off.
No, you're good.
Let's just fact check something real quick. So in the movie, he served 2 to 5 years for stealing ice cream, and in the movie, they kind of made it like it was like you're thinking about it. The way they presented the information to you, it's like for stealing ice cream, bro. What? That man doing 2 to 5 years for that? And that's actually true. They say he stole $70 worth of ice cream. But what they say is that, Fred held somebody down, the ice cream man down. They took some ice cream, they gave it to some kids. But he did 2 to 5 years for it. So I do want to say that actually is true. I know that. I think we talked about that before.
Yeah, I was about to say, you and I talked about this after we watched the movie a little bit. I think that's a fun little exercise for anybody who goes and watches this movie. Like, that's what I was suggesting from the beginning. This is a movie to serve as a jumping off point. It wouldn't be a bad idea for anyone who watches it to go do some more reading about.
Do some more reading, yes, sir.
Just check up on whether it be Fred Hampton, whether it be if you want to look up more about WilliamO'Neal, whether it be about the Panthers in general and other, historical figures that dealt with this. Hoover, for me, I'm going to probably jump off there a little bit more on Hoover. I've known little bits about him. I've known that he kind of operated the FBI like it was his own personal, unit for a little bit, but outside of that, I don't think I know enough about, how the man thought outside of the confines of what generally people thought during.
Speaking of Hoover, right? I thought it was interesting that we get the news that Fred's going to be going to prison, right? Mm-hmm. And Hoover he tells Roy, he's like, that's not good enough. I'm not satisfied with that. This is somebody that needs to be killed. And he says this specifically in the movie. He says, look, Eldridge Cleaver went to prison. He ended up becoming a hero. And the reason why he says that is because Eldridge Cleaver, he was a Panther as well. Mm-hmm. And he went to prison and he wrote this book called Soul on Ice. And it was just like a book that everybody loved. It's New York's best time seller. It did numbers. And so he's like, look, I don't want this guy going to prison, okay? Maybe he could write a book. He'll end up becoming a hero as well. This is somebody that you need dead. So I thought that was interesting. Eldridge Cleaver is somebody Eldridge Cleaver's cool. I'm not a big fan of Eldridge Cleaver just because of his differences with Huey, but that's a whole nother conversation. But
I'm about to say, look, we'll start a whole new podcast.
I'll start a whole new podcast, man. Eldridge Cleaver, he's different, but I thought that was interesting, man. Like he pretty much put the hit out.
I thought that entire that hit was that was pretty serious. But that whole scene, I think, just carries a lot of weight, right? Like that whole that whole scene carries a lot of weight because when the way Roy is presented, like Fleming's character seems to be a gentleman who's just out to do the right thing according to like what he's told. It doesn't seem like he's got necessarily too malicious of intents behind his motives or this, that, and the other.
Right.
It seems like a good officer attempting to do what he's been told is the right move to do, until we get to that scene there where we see he's been tempted a little bit when Hoover comes in after Hoover displays, kind of lays.
One of my favorite scenes you're about to get into, where he's basically like, hey, do you want your daughter dating a Negro? Because that's what's going to happen if you don't stop this guy.
and I was like, it's weird how how the scene plays out and traps him in this. Yeah. And it leaves him with nothing to truly say. Like, because he's standing in front of the person who holds his career there, and you can see that he's a little uncomfortable by the situation itself.
Oh, he's very uncomfortable. You can see that.
He's not just uncomfortable with the question, but uncomfortable with
thinking about his daughter possibly being with a colored man.
I think it stretches past just that. Like, he's uncomfortable with the situation, given his superior doing this to him. The question, I think, the thought, and then I think he's also uncomfortable about what his response is. And I'm not saying this is not to say that I know what clearly that agent, the actual agent's thoughts were in this moment, but I think it shows really good direction and work on the actors that they show all of that confusion happening there, and that they leave that kind of open-ended feeling of like, well, regardless of what he says here, does he really buy into what's being sold to him, or does he not? Like,
yeah.
And even still, like you watch, even by the end of the film, Roy is a little more. He's not as clean as we thought he was from the beginning.
No.
At the end of it,
No.
when he's talking to Will, he's just kind of like, "Hey, player, this is this is what it is.
Yeah.
What you get, this is what you did. I hope you're happy. Deal with it. And if you're not, oh well, like
that's kind of here's your gas station and here's your $300 bonus too.
He feels a little confirmed in his convictions to do what he did. So I mean, there's some really great storytelling and like character development that's happening throughout this film. But I will say, like, I know you said it's, perfect, pretty close to perfect for you. It doesn't feel as intense as I expected it to be all the way through. If that makes sense. It kind of slow burns.
It opens up intense though, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. It opens up well. It opened up really well. And I think that there are a couple of, nice moments in there of sheer intensity. But I will say, for me, there's some, it kind of slow burns. It's a slow ride a little bit toward the middle.
I disagree.
I know you
any true story, any biopic.
Yeah,
you can't say it's a slow burn, but man,
that ain't true. That ain't true.
This is the Panthers, though, man.
It can still be a slow burn, even if it's a biopic.
Okay, all right. Let me try to sell it to you this way. Okay, what if I told you that Shaka King got the inspiration from Leonardo's Departed character for William O'Neal? Would that make you feel different?
No, it's still a slow burn movie. I mean, yeah, it means that it's a written, it'd be more of a written story versus a real person's. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that a real person's story, like, I understand a real person's story isn't going to have, random explosions all the time. No, you've got to have those moments. But there were some moments where I felt like it was just a little, it wasn't bad. It just was flattened. It was just a little flattened. We were getting
okay. All right. Okay. So I'll agree with you to a certain extent, only on one occasion, though.
Okay.
It's a couple of scenes, though, and it's really between Fred Hampton and Deborah Johnson. Them two together, it's fine. I understand that's his relationship. But some of the scenes where they were just together and they were building the love story with them, that to me kind of dragged a little bit. And that's what I'd say for me personally.
Yeah. So that for you was there.
That for me.
So there are we get a couple of really intense moments with Will and for instance, like when he's about to get possibly exposed by the gang in the city. When he's about to get exposed by the gang, and then the same thing happens again within the Panthers. They worry about him. But after that, we get pivotal information, but it just feels like it coasts for a little bit until we get to, I don't feel the intensity again until the shootout, if that makes sense.
The shootout? Okay.
Yeah, and then even then it rides for a little bit, which it's a necessary ride. I'm not saying that they're making any of the wrong mistakes, that they're making mistakes there. I'm just saying for me, it does slow burn a little bit in that middle section. Like, I don't feel the anxiousness the way I do until, again, when we get to the very last scenes before the murder occurs.
I want to come back to you on that, but I want to also talk about Fred Hampton's character for a second, just who he was and how he was portrayed. Man, first of all, think about it this way, Isaiah. Yeah. When he got out of prison for the ice cream incident, what did he do first? He decided to go to the headquarters after the FBI trashed it, right?
Yeah.
So think about that. He went there instead of going home to get comfortable, get some sleep, get on the couch, get on the bed. You've just been locked up. You want to go home, right? Yeah, that says a lot about his character and how much he cared about his people. So that's one thing I learned, wow, this man wouldn't even I'm going straight to the headquarters. I'm going to see what's going on, going to check on people. And he was surprised when it was fixed up. I was like, wow, that was great. That's another testament. That's one testament to his character. The second testament to his character was, I think it was towards the end of the movie, right? Towards the end of the movie, he had the option to go to Algeria and join Eldridge Cleaver. and they had the money for him. He said, no, I want this money to go towards a clinic. You take this money and I'm going to do my time and I'll be back. Okay. I'll be back. Yeah. And then this is when we lead us. This is spoilers, people, whatever is out.
Well, we done spoiled for the whole time.
We done spoiled enough anyway.
We should have dropped that in the beginning.
Yeah. But we get to a point where WilliamO'Neal drugs him, right? We get to a point where he drugs him. And this is what I wanted to talk to you about. I personally think that it was a mercy kill. Yeah. When he drugged him. I think WilliamO'Neal had the intentions to kill him with the fentanyl. And the reason why I say that is because there was actually enough fentanyl in his system to kill him, and he wasn't going to wake up regardless whether he was shot or not. And so in a way, I'm just thinking like WilliamO'Neal was like, you know what? I got to do it. That's why he was so emotional when he gave it to him, right? Because I feel like he knew like, look, this is your last night. So I think he knew it was going to be his last night because they knew his floor plan and they were going to kill him. But also he was kind of getting emotional because he knew he killed him himself by giving him the drugs. Does that make sense?
No. I think that's a solid theory to go on there. In case anybody hadn't heard that theory before, you was listening to us, like, coroner's reports are saying that dude very clearly could have been dead before they put a bullet wound in him. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think it's the only thing I would differ from you there is that I don't know if William may have intentionally did it. Not saying that he, couldn't have, but I'm also saying that it would make sense for William, who's not a doctor and who's not, who probably doesn't know fentanyl or anything else, mm-hmm. to even have accidentally, killed him first either. I think that that's a very strong possibility that they just gave him fentanyl and just poured what he had in there, not realizing that there should be a set dose, this and the other. So no, I think it's very, very much possible. When you told me that, I was like, that's pretty interesting. Yeah. Because I know watching the film, I felt like that could have been the case. Yeah. Because of how just Lakeith does a great job of playing, like how remorseful he kind of feels about what's about to happen. Shout out to Lakeith, man. This guy has no acting classes, no real acting experience except for getting on the show ATL and then paving his way into Hollywood. I mean, I think they said Lakeith, he started off with like modeling. I think like he took like modeling classes instead. It just goes to show. And it goes to show you like that's God-given talent, man. Like he did a phenomenal job. Not just talent you. I mean, he saw a career choice he had to go for. Yeah. And then put his work in. Like, and they say that Lakeith actually needed therapy after this role because he just felt like he actually really killed Fred Hampton. Like he felt like he really did. He needed therapy after this role because he really became the character. Yeah, really put himself into the role. Yeah, a phenomenal movie. And for 10 out of 10, what I'm ranking this movie, I'm giving it a 9.5. I don't have a problem with any of it. The cinematography was great. I think that the storyline was well told. I accepted it for what it was. I accepted it as a COINTEL infiltration. That's what it was. It was that's what it was. J. Edgar Hoover, I learned something. He was very pivotal in this and making this happen. And you learn a little bit about Fred too. I think for the people who may have just heard his name before and really didn't know much about him at all, now you know a little something. Now you know that he started the Rainbow Coalition. Now you know that he died at the age of 21. Now you know things about him and it can inspire you to look him up and learn more. Now you know a little bit about the Illinois chapter. So there's a lot in this movie that was very useful information that a lot of people didn't know. It was just a well-shot movie. It was a well-told story. And like I said, this movie is going to inspire other filmmakers and open doors for other filmmakers to create similar movies like this. And another thing I want to say is I know families out there probably questioning. I hate to be the movie mom person, but I'm going to do it anyways. You know how they do, like, remember those movie mom reviews they used to do back in the day? Man, like, look, I'm going to be the person to say, families, if you decide to show this to your kids, the language, the profanity is very high. I will say that. It's a lot of F-bombs in this movie. It's a lot of profanity. But I think it's very realistic because this is a very stressful time. This is not just good times.
People are trying to strategize, mobilize, and make things happen.
True.
And so people are not going to be sitting up here all hunky-dory and just like talking like whatever. People are going to express themselves and say what they have to say. It's like if you're in a stressful situation and you're trying to survive, basically, and you want your race to survive in this city, then you're going to say things. And it's very realistic. This is very realistic. I like how they do it, because oftentimes biopics, they try to clean it up and make it all family friendly. And just like, it's like, man, I know they weren't talking like that. So that was very realistic. So families, just know that if you decide to show your kids this movie. And it reminds me of Selma, how realistic that was, because how they showed, when I say reminds me, I like Selma was authentic. That's what I'm talking about, authentic. And it's because you know what I mean by authentic with Selma, because there were things about MLK Jr. that showed his vulnerability. It showed that it insinuated
all the truth. They gave what we knew.
And it's insinuated things with him and Coretta that we might have thought happened, but we didn't know. But they insinuated it in the film without actually saying it. So that was perfect.
Well, they just showed all of his humanity. And
he's a human being. Yes, he was a human being. That's perfect.
Yeah, no. For me, I would definitely say this is a great movie, great performances. I do think it's something that everyone should, go and watch. I think just because I feel that way about most historical pieces. I think that most everybody should go and watch all of them.
9.5 out of 10.
He gives it a 9.5. I still give it a 9. I give it a 9.
9. That's close. Just go up 0.5, brother.
I'll give it a 89 to like a 90 if I was grading in a classroom. 89 to a 90. But I definitely think it's one of those that everyone should check out. It's a really good historical drama for those people who are into that. Also for those who just want to get a better idea of like who the Panthers are. And I think it's a prime example of great Black cinema. For those of you guys who are very into Black cinema and Black movies that tell about Black stories, this is a good story to do. And once again, Hollywood, I'm hollering at you. I hope this springboards other films about, other leaders that are not often spoken about. Not just Black ones, but, white, Asian, whatever. But
Shaka King, shout out to that king.
Yeah.
Shaka King, shout out to that king, man.
Yeah.
We appreciate you for this. We appreciate you for this, man.
Thank you.
And I will be looking for more of your film, your shows, whatever you decide to do because of this movie.
Fair. Super fair.
Yeah. Hey, well, we appreciate everyone for tuning in. Please do leave comments. Let us know what you think. And we appreciate you for tuning in. Thank you.